Want to live longer and better? I'm Dr. Jess. I'm a physical therapist, and in this podcast, I bring you real, science-backed strategies from physical health providers, mental health providers, and nutrition experts, so you can build strength, protect your mind, and fuel your body for decades to come. Longevity starts here. Hey, and welcome back. Today, I am super excited to have a guest with us. This is Rachel Hicks. She is a dietitian, and we are going to be uncovering the world of cortisol. And is it all good? Is it all bad? Or might it be a little bit gray? And I'm going to let Rachel take it from here to introduce herself.
Thank you, Jess, for having me on today. So, cortisol is one of those loaded topics, but before we dive in, let me just give you a little background of who I am and just where I've been over the last, 15 to 20 years. I've been in the field of nutrition and dietetics for that long. But really, my career has taken me in all these different avenues and nooks and crannies of nutrition. And inevitably, what ended up happening is I started seeing people coming into the hospitals or clinics sick, being treated for these symptoms that never got diagnosed as deeper than just what it was. So not really knowing what the true problem was. I studied dietetics out of the state of Maine at the University of Maine, and then furthered my education here in Florida, getting a master's and then furthering into functional nutrition. Once I went into that functional nutrition world, I was able to see a little bit broader of the perspective of what health and wellness truly meant. And then reflecting back on all those patients I just talked about and all the symptoms and things that were not being actually resolved from a deep root problem. And it motivated me to be where I'm at today. So I own a practice here in Jacksonville, Florida called Thrive Wellness. We're a telehealth practice. So primarily I do see women. I'm a health dietitian. But today's topic is going to be very neutral based across the board for all genders, because I think it's so important to understand the effects of cortisol inflammation when it comes to longevity and your overall health. In respects to this, is cortisol is one of those hormones that we all have and will continue to always have in some ways in our bodies. But I think understanding what it truly is really important.
Something we've heard about. I mean, cortisol is one of those words of like, oh, like I recognize that word, but I don't think we understand the complexity of cortisol. And it is, in many ways, it's what it keeps us functioning in a positive way. However, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, right? So, Rachel, do you mind explaining a little bit more about like what exactly is cortisol? Like, is it something that's very large in our body? Is it something very small? But like physiologically, what is it?
I think the easiest way to dive into it is that we all know cortisol as what we call a stress hormone. And I think inevitably people have for decades associated cortisol with weight gain. But that is like
Tip of the iceberg.
a drop in the bucket of what actually is happening with your body. Tip of the iceberg. Like it doesn't even begin to dissect the true meaning of what cortisol is. So you mentioned cortisol. Can it be a good thing? Absolutely, cortisol can be a good thing. We need it in our bodies. So we need it for things like athletics, working out, when we're learning. Our cortisol is rising right now,
Right.
just having this conversation, right? About cortisol and inflammation. So I think there is a place for cortisol. It's really important also. Cortisol also, it will be triggered during those stress responses when we need to heal or when inflammation needs to increase during an injury or a sickness, something like that. So cortisol is really important for that aspect, for our bodies to heal and respond. When we start falling into this area of it being gray or not so healthy, that is when we don't have the recovery piece from that rise in the cortisol. So we stay at an elevated amount of cortisol for a long period of time, is what I mean. And then in turn, if cortisol is going up, so does your blood sugar, so does inflammation. And that's where we're seeing more of those preventative diseases become more prevalent. And also your longevity
Absolutely.
piece
I think,
becomes.
I think that's the key is thinking, well, if I want to live this long, healthy life, I want increased health span. So I want to be ideally as old as possible, but still able to travel, go up and down stairs, like walk for long distances, independently take care of my home, like all of the things that I want so that I'm not debilitated in my older years. Um, one of the things is thinking ahead of time when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s of how do I not break my organ systems down? How do I not do that so that they last a lot longer? So, what would be different things that cause cortisol to stay elevated for longer duration than is really physiologically necessary?
Yeah. Well, and I'll even backtrack a second too by saying cortisol is released in our adrenals.
Mhm.
So essentially via your HPA axis. So your brain and your adrenals function in conjunction with releasing cortisol. So a lot of times when cortisol stays at that high level, that can be triggered through maybe it's something traumatic, pregnancy, which beautiful trauma most of
Yep.
the time, but still nonetheless trauma, a sickness of some kind. Is it that you've been diagnosed with cancer? Right? Like that is something very traumatic to your body. Your cells stop working the way they're supposed to be. These are bigger type of events in your life that I'm talking about, but it could be the fact that you are a woman juggling a business with kids, chronic stress from years on out, right? Like chronic stress can also be lifestyle driven, is what I'm getting at. So, yes, it could be disease, newly onset of disease. It could be the fact that you maybe are a new mother. It could be sleep deprivation and it can be chronic stress. So, we're looking at a lot of societal type of factors that fall into why cortisol could essentially stay high and not where you're not able to recover. When that does happen, it's no different than like insulin resistance in a diabetic. So your adrenals essentially burn out and you go from this high level of cortisol to now you bottom out and you go flat. So it's called flatlining. And you've a lot of times this term out in social media is called adrenal fatigue or cortisol burnout or all these trendy terms. But really what that means is that your cortisol is bottomed out because your adrenals stop producing
They
it
work hard for too long.
because they're
Yeah.
tired from
Yep.
overproducing cortisol. Exactly. So we talked about at the beginning of this how when cortisol goes high, it also can signal inflammation to go high. So you can imagine if cortisol is staying high for a long duration, your inflammation is also staying high. So at this time, we just talked about as cortisol dies off, we flatline, our inflammation doesn't, it just continues to grow and stay high. So with any type of inflammation, and you know this really well
Mhm.
through your musculoskeletal practice as well, but from a systematic look, everything, every system in your body at that point becomes inflamed. All the cells, all the muscles, all the tissues, all the brain. So, and all those areas I just mentioned have receptors on them. They have cell receptors that respond to movements, to thoughts, to sleep, to just basic function. So, you think of inflammation as swelling, we can envision that same thing happening in our brains and our muscles and other systems of the body. So it's not responding to the enzymes it needs. It's not functioning the way it needs to function. And then in turn, we get some of those symptoms like mood swings, bloating, weight gain, sleep deprivation, mood disruptions, whether you're not able to have the energy or the patience you once had. And this is across the board for all genders. I will say females probably experience some of those, sleep disturbances and mood factors more than men, but that's something I think is important for us to touch on today is the gender
I
roles
think
of
that
stress
kind of
management too.
taps into the like, why do we struggle so much on this just a day-to-day basis of feeling like we're surviving the day? So we're not living the day, we're not thriving in the day, we're just surviving it. Well, it's like if our body is like riddled with all this inflammation, our brain is riddled with inflammation, we're not sleeping well, we're not recovering well, just that ability just to be like happy that like, yay, this is a really good I got this really good news or whatever it is when you get these like these mood fluctuations where it's like the little things bring you down so then you don't even see the big wins that you're getting or even the small wins that you're getting. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't really feel like going for a walk. I don't really feel like working out. I don't really feel like cooking. And now that lifestyle just seems to perpetuate, right? And then we kind of get even more stuck in the cycle because going for that walk and breathing and increasing the breathing rate would actually help to pump out some of that inflammation. Eating an anti-inflammatory diet or things that are like lower in sugar, for example, things like that would also help to decrease some of that inflammation. Being able to sleep better and recover would help with inflammation in the brain and the rest of the body. So all of these other decisions that we end up making because we are surviving and not thriving, it just keeps you there. And then you're just like, you feel kind of stuck. And like, well, nothing I do works because it's like your body's fighting itself and your brain is fighting your body because it's just looking for something easy because you're so done. So I'm sure you meet people like this, Rachel, right? Where it's just like, I don't even know where to start because nothing's working, you know?
In the practice, we look at something called the box theory. So in the box theory, everything outside of the box is
Yeah.
the survival. We are surviving, right? It's the day to day, those social pressures that we put on ourselves, the societal pressures that are put on us, the must do's, not even the to do's anymore. We must get them done. We must do more. We must sign our kids up for more things. We must seek that promotion with our job and we must do it all well. So that's the survival outside of the box. And inside the box is when we get all of our symptoms, right? It's the soul crushing, the ceilings falling, the I'm not sleeping, all the things we just mentioned as far as the symptoms. What we talk about is
Okay.
recognizing when you're in the box. That's the most complicated thing to do because most of the time when we're in the survival, we're ignoring all of those feelings. We're managing. We know we don't feel good. We know we may not be treating the people in our lives the best. We know that our energy might not be the best. We know we skipped that workout or we went through the drive-through for lunch. We know those aren't best practices, but
Mhm.
yet we continue to survive that way until all of a sudden our body says, you're not doing it this way anymore because I'm not going to let you do it this way anymore. And that's where we start to see the labs change, and we're going to talk about labs here in just a second. And we start to see a lot of those symptoms arise where you're going to the doctor saying, why does this hurt? Why am I coming in with shoulder issues, but I've done nothing wrong? Why all of a sudden am I having like these these awful bouts of panic attacks or mood disorders, or I'm not sleeping, and you're seeking answers, right? But what is really difficult is when we are not recognizing the symptoms along the way because we are in survival mode. Our body is constantly signaling us, constantly telling us that we need to be changing what we're doing in order to feel
Mhm.
better, to live longer lives.
Oh, for
But we're
sure.
really good at ignoring that
Right. It's
until
so easy to
we can't,
ignore, honestly.
right? So when
So
we start looking,
easy. And that's what I try and tell
oh,
people.
it's
Right.
because it's so difficult to
Yep.
change, because it's so difficult to change. Now, we're all creatures of habit. We all live our lives a certain way. We're all programmed to do things a certain way. It's like I use the analogy how you lace your shoes every day or how you brush your teeth. They are neurologically ingrained in your brain to do the same thing every day. And you brought this up earlier about how your body feels one way and your mind feels that way,
Right.
one way. That's the gut brain axis. It's how it functions. You cannot have a healthy gut without having a healthy mind. And in turn, if your gut's impaired, so is your brain. And with chronic inflammation,
Well,
both
absolutely.
are
And I
affected.
think it's one of those things that isn't as recognized across all areas of healthcare, of really understanding like how do the systems of the body interplay? Because a lot of our providers are very good at looking just at the brain or just at the gut or just at one area of the body. And that's the difference, or just a symptom.
Or just
Yeah.
the symptom.
From like a functional medicine perspective, which is what Rachel has kind of gotten more into, it's a different approach. It's looking for that root cause. Like what actually is the driver here for why all of this isn't talking like it's supposed to? And that's the number one thing when I'm working with patients, because I have patients, in pain. I'm a physical therapist. That's why people come see me. And you can see where it's like sometimes it's pretty obvious, like, no, you actually like hurt yourself, but when it's something that's like, it's just this like, my whole body is hurting. I've got headaches, my shoulders hurt, my knees hurt, my back hurts. I mean, the body diagram, they just circle it and then just put stars everywhere. It's like, okay, yeah, you're like, we have a
All of
lot
it.
of work to do. We need to take a step back here and really try and make sure that we're going to come about this from a lot of different angles and not just like, obviously your knee hurts because you have knee pain. Your knee and your hip and your back and your fingers and your neck could hurt because of other things too. It could be something that's related to something that Rachel could help
Mhm.
with. And it's so hard for people to like get that at first. They're like, What do you mean you want me to see a dietitian? And I don't want you to see yeah, I don't want you to see
It
just
makes no
any
sense. My goal said
dietitian. It needs to be somebody that practices in a functional way. Can you explain a little bit more, Rachel? Like that difference in function. It's completely different than other areas of healthcare, and I love bringing this up because it's not something that a lot of people really yet know about.
And this is not, in
No.
no means am I demonizing standard medicine or conventional medicine or
Yep.
standard labs. I think there's a place for all of that. What functional medicine does and what I do in the practice is we look at all the systems as a whole. How are they connected? Because when one system is malfunctioning or impaired, it's a web. So everything is intertwined and works together. And inflammation is one of those things we look at. So coming into the practice, we really do a lot of deep diving into labs. We look at your numbers, we understand the function of each system of the body, and primarily in the, in respects to what we're talking about today, Jess, we're looking at blood sugar, A1C being a primary one. Hemoglobin A1C is really, really important for us to be looking at. It changes every 3 months and it's not on your standard lab. So it should be
Mhm.
asked, like you should ask to have that done. Because when blood sugar is dysregulated, 9 times out of 10, we're going to look at cortisol or your inflammatory markers. More likely than not, those are going to be altered as well. So we look at inflammatory markers like CRP or SED rate levels. So your C-reactive protein, that's the most traditional way that we can ask for our inflammation to be tested. We can have our cortisol tested as well. Those three right there are a great place functionally for us to start looking at to see if your blood sugar is dysregulated, what's your inflammatory markers look like in conjunction with your cortisol? Is it all intertwined? Because that could paint a picture for us of should we be attacking an anti inflammatory approach here? What's going on from that standpoint of inflammation? And first and foremost, regulating blood sugar across the board, right? Because when our blood sugar is dysregulated, that's where the cortisol and the inflammation, it's virtually impossible to have those numbers come down. That's where I say functional medicine is there intertwined with all of it. So we do look at the whole body approach. We look at the individual. So in standardized medicine, people come in and it's a very in the box method a lot of times, like you're taught to treat a certain way. And this can capture a certain percentage of people coming in, but it also misses a lot too. So we approach it in the sense that we're looking at your individual labs, your individual symptoms, your individual needs, but also what is your current lifestyle and diet. So you get a lot more focus on you as the patient in this type of healthcare setting than you would just going in for your
And
standard
normally when
physical.
I refer out, and I really want to include functional medicine with my treatment, it's when it is you can tell it's like this doesn't make sense. Like you shouldn't have this much pain in this many areas of your body and have this much struggle for like the onset. So like, well, I started,
Mhm.
it could be, I don't know, like I thought I would go to a gym and I started working out. Now all of a sudden my whole body is like breaking down and shutting down and it hurts. It's like, like there's more to this versus when like the inside the box works when it's like I tripped and fell, I tore my ACL, I had surgery and I got to recover. It's like all of that lines up. Boom, 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 right? So
Absolutely.
uh, it's I just think there's so many people where they're not getting the answers that they need from their healthcare providers, or they're getting a little bit better, but not all the way better. And they're not really getting to that point of like, I feel good. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I feel rested. I feel recovered. I'm motivated to put energy into myself. I'm firing on all cylinders. I mean, how many people really feel like that? Like I like
I mean, I'd love for
right,
all of us to feel that way all the time, right? Like that would be one, but again,
right.
we
It's like,
normalize
well, of
not
course
feeling
I'm
great.
tired. Right.
Like, oh, it's my age.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm tired because I'm a mom, or of course I'm sore because I worked out, or like we have to start looking at it from a different
Right.
perspective and
Exactly.
asking the question, why? Why? What's going on? And I think that this is a place
Mhm.
where I want to ask you a question is in your practice, do you see these cases coming in that have multiple aspects of their body in pain. So really living in chronic pain. Do you see it
Oh, for
more
sure. Yeah.
gender specific?
Much more common in females. Yeah. And usually I come in with a diagnosis of fibromyalgia.
So
And so I'm not like putting that diagnosis down. It's just sometimes when people get that diagnosis, their mindset goes into, oh, well, I'm just going to be in pain then. And my number one challenge anytime I see that on an intake paperwork is like, I'm really going to work on some mindset here for we're going to like allow that to own for you because we're not, no. So do we all feel aches and pains?
don't label,
Sure. I'll get
right?
through every day in 0 out of 10 pain, So it's okay to feel things during the day, but we need to be able to do something about it. So my shoulder hurts. Okay, well, what if I stretch my
Mhm.
pec and I just stop sitting in this forward slump? Okay, it stopped aching. Awesome. So we should be able to do something to change our experience. And the problem is that we don't know one what to do to change the experience or how to start feeling better. And then we're told that like, oh, well, this is just going to be your experience, and then we accept that. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, thank you. Is this easy though? Is this going to be like a fast fix?
Very easy. No,
No,
no, no, this is not
like,
a, I'm here to tell you and
no.
be transparent. None of this is easy. We investing in your health, like invest in your health like you would invest in your Starbucks drive-through or your local gym or your shopping habit. Like do it the same way. When we start looking at understanding what's happening to
No,
your specific body, it's not a quick fix. And one of the things that could be overlooked, so for example, being diagnosed with fibromyalgia is a prime example of were these
right.
women tested for hormones? Like, what were their hormone levels at? Because all of the research and literature right now is showing with a decline in estrogen and progesterone comes an increase with inflammation and
So common,
dysregulated blood
so
sugar,
common.
right? So women are getting increased lipid levels in their blood cholesterol. That happens after menopause. That's with no change in their lifestyle, their exercise, their diet. They're
Right.
like, now I have high cholesterol. I've changed nothing. What? When are we not testing hormones? Like, why is cardiovascular disease still the number one killer of women? And we're not associating it with a decline in estrogen and progesterone. Men will experience similar changes in their lipids and sugar levels, but it
Right.
happens
Yeah.
almost a decade after women see it, right? And so this is where we see women living almost a third longer than men, literature showing a third longer than men
Yep.
in poor health.
Which is very right. And I think
So
and that's
how
the
do we
whole
change
point
that?
is like that's the whole point of this podcast is like how can we learn to do better? So like I look ahead at like the people that I've worked with and I'm like I don't want that experience. I don't. So what can I do for me to help me not get ahead of what I can get ahead of? And then it's like, you see all these patients that come in every day and I'm like, okay, so we just have to talk more about this stuff, you know? Like we need to get this information out there that it really oftentimes comes down to one is figuring you out, and like understanding what are your levels as an individual if they're out of control. But like what are some of the simple lifestyle changes that can really make a big impact in how you live for the next 20, 30, 40 years? And that's the hard part 'cause it's the lifestyle change that is not the quick
Mhm.
fix. It's not gonna get you 40 pounds down on the scale in 30 days. It's none of that. It's the slow and steady wins the race, and it's not flashy.
It isn't,
I
and it's
know.
hard and it's consistent. And, let's talk about those
Mhm.
those changes. What does that look like? And
Yes.
that will be the hardest piece for people is because when you're feeling your worst, it's the
Yes.
hardest to do the hard things. Like that
Um,
is the transparent part of it. We're asking patients to do things that virtually with some of them, where they're at with their pain threshold, their energy threshold,
right.
seems virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Simplifying it is something we do in the practice a lot. Like 1%
Yes.
change. Like I love the
Love it.
book, The Atomic Habit. It talks about making
Yep.
1% change every single day. And I apply it to my life as well for things that I'm struggling with. And I really feel like it's attainable because if you do 1% for 365 days. Wow, you look
I'd be
better
blown
than
away,
you don't
blown
recognize
away at
the
the
old you.
difference.
So is it what are we looking at a nutritional standpoint of what's an anti-inflammatory diet look like? We're looking at things like meats and veggies, high fiber, healthy fats. But that's broad. Some people
Hmm.
don't even know what that is and where to start. What's a healthy fat? Is it, do I eat eggs every day? Do I eat red meat every day? Or do I eat chicken? Like, what is a healthy fat? So we look at things like olive oils, good avocados, nuts. And yes, eggs and animal protein is fine in moderation. Absolutely. I think it's
Right.
important. Protein is incredibly important. And then lots of fiber, lots of colors, fruits and veggies, all of the beans, the lentils, all those things to feed the gut. That helps regulate blood sugar. When you pair a protein with a fiber, that keeps your blood sugar nice and flat. That's what we want. So I push my patients to start making that transition into that direction of eating. We look at supplementation. What do you need to supplement for? What supplement specific to you? Because we can jump online, Jess, and all of a sudden social media has us needing about 27 different supplements because they are proven to cure everything. Supplements bridge the gap. They're the cherry on the sundae. You cannot supplement yourself to health. And in the practice, one of the things I'm really mindful of is not making us supplement poor. So it's very
Look, it's
specific.
every month
They're
they're
so
reordering all
expensive.
these supplements.
And why?
I'm like, I look at some of the intake paperwork sometime. I'm like, what is your bill every month?
Oh, I have patients
Mhm.
coming in and they're on 30 plus supplements. 30 plus. How do we know what's working and what's not? Is it specific to you? And it's all in good nature. They're really trying to do the best for themselves. Like it's not a negative thing. It's just
Mhm.
let's pull back. Let's really take what your body needs. Let's look at the labs, let's look at the testing. So if it is an inflammation, if it is cortisol, we are going to supplement specific to those labs. And exercise. If you are somebody that is deconditioned at this point and you want to start exercising, it is
Exactly.
a walk. Let's start walking 10, I call them micro walks after your meals. Go out and just walk after
Mhm.
every meal or 2 meals a day because that flattens your blood sugar curve. So when you walk after you eat, it
Mhm.
helps your blood sugar decline naturally, helps inflammation decline naturally, helps your cortisol come down, what we're talking about today. So when we start breaking things off in simpler bites, it's more attainable for
Absolutely. And I
term
think this
habit
is
forming.
where those micro habits, when we tie them to something we're already doing, right? Like, so you brought up a perfect example. After you eat, take that walk. So, does exercise have to be this thing that looks perfect where you go to the perfect location, which many people think is a gym, and I have to do all of these, every machine that I see, and it just feels so overwhelming. Like, it has to be this perfect amount of everything. When the reality is it doesn't. Like, think about the people, like, when you like the blue zones, for example. Look at the people that are like, 100 years old getting onto a
Mhm.
horse and still doing some ranching. Right. So did that
Oh,
guy
I've
see a
met that
marathon runner?
person.
Was he an Olympic lifter? Did he do like all of that like super hardcore gym stuff? Or did he just he led an active lifestyle his whole life? Now, a lot of us don't have the
Balance.
luxury of having jobs where we can be active all day, right? So many of us have jobs where we do need to be in front of a computer. And so that is where we do need to supplement our exercise because our lifestyle isn't giving us enough. And so there is intention in that, but it doesn't have to be this all out effort of like every run has to be a PR or otherwise it's not worth it. A little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. It is. I mean, there are like
Yes. And that's where the micro movements, the micro walks, the micro changes
difference. And it
make a
seems like
big
how could
difference.
that be? How could, going on a 5 or 10 minute walk a couple times a day really make that much difference? But I challenge you, like really try it and you will start realizing like, holy goodness, like when I check my blood sugar, it's better. My stamina feels better. My energy feels better. My mood feels better. And now,
Mhm.
yes, all of
I
a
took the
sudden
words out of my mouth on
the
that one.
next change becomes easier. So you're just building that foundation that you can start to grow off of it Whereas like when you don't have the foundation built, everything you try, it doesn't work fast enough, and then it feels like it comes back down and it's defeating, and then that cortisol just stays because you're just
Hmm.
constantly in this like nothing's working, I'm still ramped, I still don't feel good, you know.
Well, and things that I see with specifically women, which is it's not shocking, is that we
Oh
create
yeah.
stress
Oh,
to
every day.
reduce stress,
See?
right? Like we will do our breath work, we will walk, we will go to the gym. I'm like, we are, raising our cortisol,
Pretty much.
trying to reduce our cortisol. So when we look at it from that standpoint, it's funny. We're making a joke about it, but it
Hmm.
really is something we do all the time. So when we slow and change, it doesn't always feel good. It doesn't like we don't always want to make that change, but trusting the process and the consistency of doing it is so huge. And like I said, it's not going to be a month or two. You may The first thing I tell women primarily to look at, and men too, your energy levels. Let's look at your energy level because that will be the
Yeah.
first thing that starts to change. You start to feel like you might sleep a little better. You feel better during the day. You have more motivation to do all those micro movements or the habits you're trying to change. And then if you can recognize that you're feeling better from an energy standpoint, then that's a
Exactly.
catalyst to keep moving forward because we're creatures, we want to feel
Right.
rewarded with the efforts we put in.
Yeah.
So it's a
I
good
think
marker
to
to
me,
look
that's one of the number one markers that I focus on in the very beginning. And there's different ways of kind of tracking that because we're all in that present moment. So when you ask somebody like, "Oh, how are you feeling with your energy level?" and they'll go, "Well, right now," so it's having taking a second to track that is what I typically challenge people to do, of whether you've got some sort of like, like it can be a couple pieces of paper like stapled together. Leave it by your bedside, and before you go to bed, just kind of like write a couple notes of like, how did I do today? Like, what did I stay consistent with? Whatever it was I was trying to do. Did I wake up feeling tired? Did I wake up feeling good? Just a couple of notes. So then you'll be able to look back. Like a month later, you're gonna look at your notes and go, oh, oh wow. Oh, I don't feel like that anymore. I was really struggling. Like I couldn't
at.
get out of bed in the morning. I was really tired still by lunch. I was drinking 2 cups of coffee in the afternoon, and now you're like, oh, wow, is it perfect? No, we're never perfect. Like this is always a journey, but it's if you don't look back at where
Yes.
you were, you're not going to realize how far you've come. And then we just compare ourselves to society and everybody around us, and we feel like we're not doing it enough. We're never enough, right? But are we?
Yes.
Are we enough? I mean, I
Hmm.
struggle with that every day. Like, am I enough of a mom? Am I enough of a wife? Enough of a friend? Enough of a therapist? Enough of a business owner? Well, the answer is on the days where I'm crushing one thing, I'm falling short on something else. That's real life. That is real life.
Always. But at that point, you get into managing those feelings
Yep.
from a lifestyle perspective so it doesn't result in the symptoms of high
Acceptance.
cortisol and inflammation, right? And is that's acceptance. That's
Yep.
all the in the box feelings I talked about, right? Like understanding what's going on, what you're feeling, putting a name to it, and then making, and that's the not pretty shiny stuff when
Yeah.
we talk about it with our patients because they want the tell me to eat this, tell me to do this, and then I'll be cured, right? Because that's a tangible thing. When we start talking about lifestyle changes and the way that we think and our mental health, it's not tangible. It's harder
Right.
to grasp onto. It's more difficult. But our whole like I said at the beginning, cortisol is released out of your HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, mainly out of your brain. Your brain tells your adrenals to secrete cortisol. So if we're not managing our mental health with trying to reduce inflammation and cortisol, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And really, it's just a rat race. So we end up chasing our tail. So that will be the most difficult thing in this podcast for listeners to take away is understanding that, yes, changing your diet, and moving your body more, getting your labs tested, those are all things they can go do. The most difficult thing is changing how we
Absolutely.
think.
And I
And
think it's the constant journey as being a human. That's the human existence of being in touch with me because we are like social creatures and we do live in communities and societies and we want to be connected. And so it's so easy to compare ourselves against whoever we see that we feel might be doing something better than us, or they're, who knows, they're excelling more than we are, or they look a way that we want to look. And it's so easy to get stuck in that comparison instead of this is my journey, this is my experience, and understanding that, like, yeah, I'm not out here, with big muscles lifting all these crazy weights. I'm just taking this walk after I eat. And that's okay. Like,
Mhm.
that is amazing, and celebrating every small win that you can is gonna be hugely important to regain that sense of self, and that you are good, you are enough, and you want to continue to grow, just like all of us. Like, we all want to continue to grow in some way, we're all in just different parts of this journey, and so
Mhm.
it's that acceptance phase that is, like, the hardest, because it just goes against our natural instinct of comparing against somebody that is perceived to be in a better place than us. And sometimes it sets this goal that is not really attainable. We all have different body types. We all have different comorbidities, past medical histories, ages, just physiologic makeup of mitochondria, right? Like, I'm not going to be the fastest marathoner. I'm not. Like, it doesn't matter if I trained the hardest that I could possibly train. There are going to be people that run faster than me. That's just their makeup. And that's okay, right? Like, I have struggled with that over the years when I was, like, much more competitive with sports and running, and it's like I noticed that I was constantly comparing myself as if I wasn't good enough, and I was like, what if I do this because I enjoy it? What if that's why I do things?
Joy, that is a
Yeah,
huge piece in the practice. We have something called the health circle, and there's it looks like pizza pies, and each pizza piece has a thing that my patients practice and work on, and we never do it all at once. Like, we tackle areas that are in the most need first, and then once we feel secure, we move on to different pieces. So obviously, nutrition and exercise are pieces within
yeah,
that movement.
nice
I call it
fuels.
movement
Yeah,
because I don't care how what you yeah.
yeah,
I don't care how you move your body.
mhm,
Something. Just do something. But a whole piece is joy because it allows our central nervous system
right,
to completely deload. And that helps all of everything
exactly.
we're talking about to also do that. And joy is something that we don't seek out very often, like being playful, having fun, or just doing something for the
That's
simple
it. That's the
fact
only
that it
reason.
makes you happy.
It's the only reason why you do it.
That is proven
Yep,
in research
yep,
to lower
uh,
cortisol. So
mhm,
if take that away from today.
yep.
Let's do things
And
that
I'll tell you
make us
one
happy.
thing, having kids has been, I think, it's helped me understand how to just be silly. And, like, why do we stop doing that? Right?
Mhm.
Like, all of a sudden we have a dance party in the middle of the kitchen. Why? Just because. Like, why not?
Mhm.
Why would you not have a dance party in the middle of the kitchen? I mean, that song is
Not
hysterical.
I mean, there's a lot out there right now. No, and it is finding those moments where you can. And when you allow yourself those moments, you when you are done, whatever that activity is, you recognize that you feel different. Right? Like you haven't thought about something stressful, you're not carrying some sort of must do on the list, you're not overthinking, you breathe, maybe you've taken some breaths during that because all of us love the shallow chest breathing throughout the day that allows us to stay in this really hyper stressed state. So, taking some deep breaths can be really helpful too. So I think when we start looking at habits and lifestyles to adopt with this, some good advice would be to start realistic and start small and make a list that's
Yep.
one or two things you want to focus on. Is it the micro walk? Is it to do find something you enjoy doing, multiple times a week? Is it that you need to start eating more protein and fiber? Or is it that you need to find somebody to do the testing that we're talking about to understand what's going on? Like if you're someone experiencing these symptoms and it's past 2 or 3 months of you feeling this way,
I
you
agree with
should be
that because
getting
it's
answers.
obviously persisted. And so that means you're kind of stuck in some sort of a
Hmm.
state that could be very, very hard to get out of without specificity of getting out of it. So it's pretty easy, like, so I kind of always say to patients, I'm like, well, if we've got this building and this scaffolding, and we've got one or two areas of the scaffolding that isn't doing its job. And so we can't put anything on this because it's going to crumble. But you don't know, like you as an individual, this isn't common knowledge. So that's where like either I come in from musculoskeletal and I figure out biomechanically where are the problems, or Rachel would come in with labs, like where are the specific issues so we can shore that up. Now that that's shored up, okay, now we can start getting into some of the fun stuff. But like we can't put anything onto this until we shore this up and we've got this foundation that's solid. Okay, cool. And that's where professionals come in. So lifestyle will get you so far, but if there's something that's actually unstable, that's a little bit of a different story. So it can be both ways. Some people don't need that. Some people really truly just adding some lifestyle change can be make all the difference in the world. And if you're not noticing any improvement and you're still feeling like you're just a stuck like a cat chasing its tail, and you're feeling defeated, there are answers. There are, like, they really are. Don't stop
Hmm.
looking for
Absolutely.
answers. It might be that you have to talk to more people than you've talked to. I've had patients say, I've talked to 15 doctors and I still feel like this. I'm like, okay, you didn't talk to the right one yet. Not yet. That person exists,
Right.
though. They do. We just don't yet know the right person for you to talk to get the right testing to understand why your scaffolding is not holding you up. So just think, not yet. I just haven't met the right person yet to help me. And then don't lose hope. Like our physiology is smart. It is very smart and it's very complex. So I think you can attest to that, Rachel. It's like there are times where it is weird. You're like, who knew? Like, who knew it could be
Hmm.
this? Because it's not common. Right.
We are constantly deep diving, and like we already said, it's not easy, and it's consistency. I think just attributing a few of these things into your life that we talked about today
Mhm.
is a great starting place, and then reaching out if you need extra help and guidance
Absolutely.
is really important.
So I really enjoyed this conversation, Rachel. I think cortisol is one of those things that it gets a bad rap because it's like, oh, it's obviously bad. But in reality, cortisol helps us function. It would just get stuck in these states where it's way too high. And obviously we get all of the negative impacts of that, and especially when it persists for years and years. And then here comes the onset of the diagnoses. And if we can really try and get ahead of that, that's amazing. So, like Rachel said, like, that anti-inflammatory diet with like protein plus veggies, eat the rainbow, lots of colors of vegetables, and getting movement into your day that you actually enjoy. It shouldn't be movement that you despise or hate. You'll never keep up with it. Finding some sort of accountability partner to help keep you going can be super helpful. And then just, really trying to focus on like, how are you recovering and what does that mindset look like? And so, all of these are going to be the different factors where you just kind of start with like pick one and focus on it. So join us next week. We'll be continuing to talk about longevity and all of the little things that can add up, and like exploring and deep diving into more subjects. All right, everybody, share this with somebody if it feels like it could be helpful to them. And if you want to learn more about Rachel and her practice, check out the episode description and you'll have a link in there.